Meditation and spiritual practices bring out the 4 I's in you: innovation, intuition, inspiration, and intelligence. A quote by Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, a humanitarian spiritual leader and an ambassador of peace and human values. Through his life and work, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar has inspired millions around the world with a vision of stress-free and violence-free world. Hello, my name is Malati, and I'm your host on this show titled The Impressive Empress, where we celebrate and amplify the voices of women, providing insightful conversations and stories to help more girls and women embrace their power, purpose, and potential in all aspects of life. It's always inspiring to talk to women leaders who are making a positive impact on the world through their work. In this episode, I'm with Dr. Vijayalakshmi Mohanty, an accomplished academician, a public relations professional, an author, and an institution builder. She has authored the biography of President Murmu, the 15th, and the current President of Bharat, showcasing her dedication to research. Her work sheds light on President Murmu's life and achievements, serving as a historical record and a source of inspiration. Dr. Mohanty played a key role in establishing Sri Sri University, the first private university enacted by the government of Odisha. With over 22 years of experience in teaching and administrative roles, she has authored numerous research articles, books, and press releases. Additionally, her involvement in conflict resolution and peace studies reflects her commitment to addressing global challenges. As a certified art of living skills and meditation trainer, she promotes holistic well-being and personal development. Dr. Mohanty's dedication to academia, public relations, and social outreach exemplify her commitment to making a positive impact on the world. Vijayalakshmi is a recipient of several state and national awards for her valuable work to the society. Listen on as Dr. Mohanty joins me in this conversation where we talk about intention, meditation, and manifestation, among other things. Namaskaram, Vijayalakshmi. It's such a pleasure to be able to invite you as a guest on our podcast, The Impressive Empress, where we talk to women leaders from various walks of life, trying to understand their inner journey, their inner journey from their childhood right up to now, to understand what is it that makes the person that you are. So a warm welcome to you, and I look forward to talking to you today.
Namaskar, Malati. Thank you for having me here. And it's such a nice thing that we are connected. You are in Germany, I'm in Odisha, India, and we're connected through newest technologies. And it's quite very overwhelming.
Yes.
And thank you for choosing me, and I'm grateful for this.
Thank you so much. It would be nice if you could introduce yourself, Vijayalakshmi. It's amazing the work that you're doing, but I would also like to understand you as a person. So briefly introduce yourself.
My name is Vijayalakshmi, and I have done a doctoral degree. Educationally, I have a triple postgraduate. I have done my post-graduation MSc in physics and in public administration, Master of Arts in Public Administration, and an MBA, and also a PhD in public administration, and an LLB degree. I'm also a certified yoga trainer. And since I love maths, I am also a trainer of Vedic maths. Presently, I am looking into the various aspects, various verticals of Sri Sri University. And I am also the first member of Sri Sri University. So presently, I am the Director of Human Resource Development Center and also the Nodal Officer of Association of Indian Universities Academic and Administrative Development Center. Along with that, I am also teaching faculty in Faculty of Management. I teach governance and public policy. And my primary responsibility of the organization was public relations and social outreach, and that continues. And I also had a center Sri Sri Advanced Global Center for Conflict Resolution and Peace Studies. So these are my official designations for. But if you ask me what is the best thing which can describe me is I love to serve, and I love to serve for the cause called Art of Living and for my master Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Ji. And that gives me the utmost satisfaction. And the second thing I love the most is meditation. So I'm a meditation trainer. I myself meditate and have taught thousands to meditation, Sudarshan Kriya, and different yogic techniques, which has made them stress-free and which has made them smile and keeping a good energy level at all time.
So many things that you are doing, it appears that all at the same time. How do you prioritize your tasks?
I love to work. My first priority is to myself. So I meditate every day. That is non-negotiable. And since if I can give that much time to myself, I can give time to this world. That is my belief. When you meditate, we say that you get more time. Your 24 hours becomes 36 hours, not in a scientific term, in a measurable term, but yes, your efficiency became double, and you will be able to do more thing in less time, and that happens for sure. And that's been happening since last 22 years in this life of meditating and working too. And I have been multitasking. It is said that the human brain can grasp one thing at a time. But, we are doing one after another, many things in a day. And it is happening. And there are a lot of quality changes also in the organization which are happening through us. And there is a divine force which makes things happen, that I always believe. Something in life you can do through your efforts. And there is something you can never do through your efforts, and that can be achieved through your prayers as well. So sometimes you make effort, sometimes you pray. So that's a good combination, and I practice it every day. I do pray. Meditation is also nothing short of a prayer. Pranayam, meditation, nothing short of a prayer. And I work also. I work very hard. I work smart also. So if something can be delegated, I delegate. So I love people. People love me. That is my there is my USP. Whenever I do believe in people. So people give it back when it is their turn. So if you can do things all alone, you can do this much. But if you can have a team, and you can do a lot of things. So there are people who help me as well in achieving the task. And most of the tasks that I take up is for the benefit of the society, for the benefit of a greater common good, for the benefit of a larger interest. It is of larger interest. So there are people who come forward to help also. Yeah, and it keeps happening. So Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Ji says that intention, attention, and manifestation. So there is an intention to do things, and then we put our attention to it, and then start manifesting. And he also tells us there are many times suppose some work to be done, and somebody wants to do it for some reason he or she cannot do it. So if you put your sankalpa and prayers also in that, it starts happening. It is like different dimension. We as a human being see that there are 3 dimensions. We comprehend through certain dimensions. I'm also a student of physics. And I see physics and spirituality are quite hand in hand, or we can say these are opposite sides of the same coin. So something you can comprehend, you have come with this much frequency. So you can understand this much frequency. You can vibrate through this much frequency. There are certain things which we cannot see, which might a dog can see, which an owl may see, which we cannot see. There is certain thing we cannot sniff, but a dog can sniff. maybe 10,000 times more than us. So we have certain limited capacity to comprehend things which are happening. So beyond our reach, also things are happening. And there are creatures in this organization, in this world, in this universe, who are able to fathom it, who are able to comprehend. So it just, I mean, it's just a matter of relativity. So, yeah.
I mean, it's so well said, from intention to manifestation. There are so many things in between. Yeah, sometimes they are our own efforts, sometimes they are our prayers. But yes, I think the team also that you have beautifully brought them with love and dedication. People are working. But tell me something about your family and their role. How have they supported you in your career?
I have a blessed family. I'm blessed to have a great family. I have my parents, my brother, and I have a joint family. So my uncles, my aunts, all stay together, my cousins. So we stay still in our ancestral home, which is in Rairampur, the northernmost part of the state of Odisha, which is near Jamshedpur, 60 kilometers to Jamshedpur, near Jharkhand. But it is in Odisha. And we still live in a joint family and with great love and affection towards one another. I am brought up with a family of 22 people. So when I was a child, when I was going to school, I lived in my ancestral home. And I had my grandmother, grandfather, my 4 uncles. My father has 10 brothers and sisters. And my bua aunt has a lot of impression on me. She has raised me. And my mother, who is a working lady, she was serving the government of Odisha as a medical officer. She is a doctor. And then we were brought up by everybody. Like today, I see that children are brought up only by their parents, which is not the case for me. I was brought up by my grandparents, by my aunt, by my parents, by my cousins, by my, there are a lot of people who were around me. So I got a lot of flavors from everybody. I learned from everybody, and I am the eldest in my family, in my home, since my father is the eldest son. And he had a responsibility towards everybody. So he has raised his brothers and sisters, got them married, and still now he takes care of them. And I like the fact that my parents are so nice and so broad-minded that they take care of everybody. And they not only take care of the biological family, they take care of many societal issues. So, and that's how we learned that you can never be happy alone. You have to have a happy community and a happy surrounding. And that's how you are just an extension arm of this nature. Because I do believe that you have to have a balance of everything, to spirituality, to your family, to your society, towards your hobby, towards your education. And if you can keep a balance, then you have a happy life. If you cannot, then that is an issue.
Yeah, very true. I mean, no wonder you're a people person when you're surrounded by so many people growing up. I also read that your father was a philanthropist, and I'm sure you also are known for many social projects that you do. But what are the skills that you developed as a child, and these skills you have nurtured over a period of time, and these are now helping you kind of execute all of these projects?
Our home is, it's sometimes some people jokingly says that your home is a jilla, it's a district, it's not a home. Because not only 22 people are living, and there are friends of these people who are coming. There were some in-laws of some people who were coming. And earlier days when television was also not there, people used to visit. So neighbors would come and talk in the evenings. And there may be people, my aunts who got married, they might come. Their in-laws may come. So it would be very big family, like 25, 26 people eating every day. It's like, as somebody said, it's like a district. So that's how I learned the skill of doing things with diversity. So unity and diversity, that's what I have learned. And I have learned how to remain focused in a crowd. So even if our home is like a cosmopolitan, it's a mall, or it's a district, or it's so many people were residing together with so many different interests and friends, and their food habits and everything were different. We were taught how to be focused, how to study. And so we were very disciplined. Even though people are visiting, people were coming, going, eating, we'd get up the same time, we would go to school, and then our eating time, sleeping time are the same. It cannot be like, so how to remain disciplined, even if there are festivities around, and do your work with focus. That's what I have learned. My aunt was very strict. My parents were very liberal. They won't mind if I study or I sleep early, or if I didn't make my homework. So they didn't bother much. But my aunt was very strict. So there was never a day I didn't do my homework in whole of my life. And I didn't study. Even if my exams are completed, I have to study at least 5, 10, 20 minutes. Otherwise, it's like very disciplined life. So I dedicate the discipline to her. And my parents were affectionate, very much affectionate. So that made me feel that if you want to make somebody disciplined also, you're going to do so by being strict or by being rude to them or children. So if you are flexible, if you are compassionate, if you are very understanding, these children also get that. So they became responsible as well. So the awareness. So first, if I have to sum up what I've learned from a big family, like awareness, to how to bring awareness amidst of chaos, amidst of crowd. And second thing, remaining disciplined, because that is the only thing that you're going to achieve. And third thing, how to manage diversity. How to, this helps in the team also. When I work in the team, this helps me a lot, because I have seen a lot of people who have different interests, and so I can relate to them. I know. And I find the joint family is a brilliant way to develop a child's persona. And then my parents were also very much like giving, always giving. Always be happy. If somebody comes home, they feel so happy and they feed them with a lot of affection. In Odia household, if you go, feeding somebody is the greatest thing one can do. And it is also said that they feed you till you cry, then stop feeding me. I cannot take it more. So it was so so, overwhelmingly affectionate. So that's how we jokingly tell. All those things actually add to life.
I mean, that's one beautiful way of growing up, and so many qualities you have picked up. But I would like to ask you about one thing that you have done for the society also, writing a biographical sketch of the 15th President of India, the current President of India, President Draupadi Murmu ji. What motivated you to write that book, and what is it that you can share with us about that?
I know her since last 30 years. And when her nomination take place as a presidential candidate, NDA presidential candidate, and then we were the first few people who reached her And no, as I am her constituent as well. She is also a family friend of my parents, and it was very overwhelming moment for all of us because nobody from my hometown had ever been president or prime minister of a country, and such a big country like India. And we always say that we know the prime minister or the president, but this is the first time when president knows her. And then many people were writing, the journalists, the media, all the people were flocking to our town. And then she had gone to Delhi after one day. Many of us who were talking to them or who were facilitating their visits to her hometown, her ancestral place, her in-laws' place where the school has come up. It's like that. So people are writing many stories. There are a lot of people who didn't know anything, who never came to the town, and they were still writing about her. So then my family and there are people, my friends have told, why don't you write something? You write many things for many books. Why don't you write anything about her? And that's how it started. I wrote first an article to a newspaper. And then I thought, let's write. And there are few mentors of me there are few civil servants also who have encouraged and then introduced me to the publisher. So I was thinking of many things, but then they got introduced and it just happened. Initially, I thought it will take 1-2 months because I know many things, so I would write it immediately. But it took me 8-9 months of research. More than 100 people have been interviewed. And most of the people I interviewed, I know them. So it's a common circle. So I know them, they know me, and they know President of India. It was like that. And we had to pinch it to believe that she became the President of India. Because it was like my own person, my family member has become something. And we were extremely proud of the fact that, and we are also extremely happy that our politics our choice has come to a level that it is all inclusive. So we live in a society, we live in an era which is more inclusive, which respects diversity, and which has the ability to pick up somebody from the remotest part of the country. And she truly nurtured those values. So to nurture values, you did not be born in a cosmopolitan or you did not be born in a metro. If you're living in a small place also, if you have those qualities and if you have shown good leadership skills, so you can be picked from any part of the country. And first time she is also the tribal women, and there was no tribal men also before this who was the president of India. So first tribal president of India in the 75th year of India's independence was quite a symbolic. And the makers of the constitution who has made it must have thought and had thought this day would come when somebody from the remotest part of the country would be first citizen of this country. And the day has happened. And that made us proud. And we thought, let us write something. And we'll be happy to know that somebody who has written the biography of Madam had called me, has sent a message saying that this is one of the best biography written on her. He has also written one. And that I think I got many compliments, but this is perhaps the best compliment from one author to another author. And many stories I have depicted there is been told to me in person by her. And because I knew her earlier, so I am part of many stories and even if I am not a part of many stories, my cousins, my brothers, my family members, my parents, and most importantly, Robbie Dada, who has started her political journey, was very fond of me. And I was also very fond of him. He's no more. He was my father's best friend. I have learned many stories from him and his family, and it's a big family, like Naveen Bhai, Naveen Ram ji, and Bapu Bhai, Bapi Bhai, all the Sibu Bhai, all the people who are very close to her are also very close to her. So we had here many stories, but to jot it down in a format which can be readable, which is can be appreciated, and which should not be very big or very small, and we should depict her full personality, was really difficult, which I didn't think of. And thankfully, my mother is the best editor, so she edited the book first, and she also know, because she worked there for 53, 54 years in the same town, of course with intermittent transfers, but she knew all the culture, all the people that I was writing. So she is the first person to read this content and then edit it twice, thrice. And then some professional editors have edited. And then we were ready to publish it.
Great journey that must have been for you also personally. I mean, even if you know someone, and it's such an honor, and like you very rightly mentioned, it's one thing to say that I know the president. It's totally another thing when the president of the country also knows you. She's one inspiration for many, many people of the country, and she personifies humility and wisdom, I should say, and also resilience. So I'm going to buy that book and read it one day. I'm sure it would be a lovely read. I mean, as someone who has read several books and also authored many articles and journals on the Indian civilization, including the political leadership or the ethical political leadership, which you are very fond of. You've also, in one of our previous conversations, you mentioned books like the books from the Bharatiya Jnana Sampradaya, like the Chanakya Niti or the Arthashastra. How do you think study of these could add value to leadership in general?
These are timeless texts like Vidur Niti. Like in Mahabharata, there are many timeless lessons. And there are, most importantly, Vidur Niti, Bhishma Yudhishthir Samvad, which we call Shanti Parva. There are Anushashan Parva also. And then Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is timeless, and it has something for everybody. And then Yaksha Prasna. So these are four things which Mahabharata gives us as a governance lessons for all time. We call it the Indian knowledge system, but nowadays, but these we have been using for many years in our leadership styles or imparting leadership. We have been using it. Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar had told that a leader must be having at least 5 qualities. And what are these qualities? First, Priyadarshi. He should be good. Like everybody should love him. And Satyadarshi, truthful. If one is not truthful, you don't find like you're cheated. So that's how people get very angry when their leaders do not respect their words. So there are many people who might not respect their words, but your political leader doesn't respect it, you feel cheated, especially in a democracy. Samadarshi, equanimous. He should treat everybody equally, impartial. And Durdarshi must be a visionary. If somebody is not a visionary, he or she cannot be a leader. Because you have to plan 50 years ahead, 500 years ahead. Now leaders are planning 1,000 years ahead, which is a great thing for Indian civilization. And Paradarshi must be transparent. And that's how if I'm not transparent, people won't be interested to work with me. So these are the 5 things. Taking these 5 tenets, I have developed an ethical leadership module for the upcoming leaders, and it has been patented. And how to inculcate those values so that you can be loved by people, you become effective, your times are being used. Because when you become a leader, your time is not your time is people's time. And it is also said that Raj Dharma. So, as a leader, what is your responsibilities, what is your dharma are different as the responsibility of a teacher or a household. So, for a leader, your first priority is the citizen. Like Ramachandra has told, my praja, my citizen, my people are more important than the family. And that's how the Rashtra has faltered. He gave more importance to his family, to his sons, than the kingdom. That's how the whole kingdom suffered. Thousands of people, lakhs of people died in the Mahabharata just for the fact that the king is not able to be in Rajdharma. So, time and again, we have seen that even though we are in democracy, forms of governance may change, but the one characteristic feature which will never change is the ethics. The value for sharing and caring. You might name it differently. New age people name it different. Like for corporate, we say corporate social responsibility. If you say Mahabharata, it says that dana. Yagya dana tapascheva pavanani manishina. So yagya dana or tapa purifies you. Dana is one of the most important aspects. Now we are telling, Indian government is telling, give 2% in corporate social responsibility. Same values, different place and different connotation or different language. But ultimately, you have to give something in charity. Why should you give something in charity? Because you're taking everything from the society. This society is giving you everything. The food, the affection, the respect, and your business also flourishing in this society. So you should give it back. That's how this thing. Like similarly, in governance, in politics, ethics should be the cornerstone of the governance. Unless there is ethics, no governance will be liked, no governance will be sustainable, and no governance can benefit to the maximum people. So it should be ethical. So ethical political leadership is my dream, and my dream is happening. It was as if the whole universe has crafted to accomplish my dream. I feel like that. People are appreciating the values that I love or I have written in this. But this is what people want. They want to be respected. They want to be cared. They want to be delivered at the end of the day. And even in monarchy, if you see Ramarajya, in monarchy also, Dasaratha had taken the consensus of people before he would like to give the throne or before the coronation of Sri Ram. He took the opinion of the people. So even in monarchy, there was certain amount of democracy in it. So now also in democracy, you find certain amount of monarchy in it. Because if a leader's son becomes a leader, so it is sort of a monarchy. So there are superimposition, there are overlapping of the forms of governance. But the moral of the story is that people doesn't mind if leader's son become a leader or if somebody becomes a leader. People definitely mind when they are not delivered. If you are a good leader, if you are believes in the principle, if you are good to them, if you are delivering, if you are philanthropic, if you find your subjects, your citizens a priority than anything else in this world, then they would definitely would like you to continue for 20 years, 30 years, because public sab janti. Their intelligence. So that is how I have written, and I have been teaching governance, and this also this ethical political leadership, we would give it in a certificate program shortly from the university.
Great. I think the world would definitely benefit from your writings on this ethical political leadership. I would definitely, I would like to understand these 5 words. Could you please repeat them again, what Gurudev had mentioned?
Yes, Satyadarshi, Samadarshi, Priyadarshi, Doordarshi, and Paradarshi.
Wonderful. Amazing. I think wise words from a wise man. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, moving on to Gurudev itself. You have been very fortunate to have Sri Ravi Shankar ji as one of your mentors and spiritual guides. How has this shaped you as a person who's able to contribute so positively towards the society? I know you did briefly touch upon this in the beginning, but if you could probably elaborate this a little bit more.
From my childhood, I wanted to do something which will benefit the society, but the idea was very vague. I could not know what should I do that will benefit the society. So I thought maybe joining this service or that profession would do it. But since last 22 years, my dream has been given shape by none other than my spiritual master, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar ji. He has given purpose to life, so my time is utilized in a better way. I am fortunate that many lifetimes I would have come here, and many people are here. There are crores of people in this world, and there are a handful of people who get this opportunity to do something for the community. And this Rishi University that you see in the backdrop, that is situated till now. This is the only university of the art of living founded by Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar ji. I had the privilege of being the first member of the university, and I was only one member who was working in the ground 24/7 for first 5 years of this university. So I'm fortunate that my dreams, my life has given a purpose by my spiritual master. And not only the institute grew over a period of time. This is my 22nd year in the art of living and 18th year in Sri University. But I have also grown as a person, as a seeker, as an academician. So it is like I grew with this institution. And I'm happy that this institution, which will stay here for 5,000 years, I have been privileged to become the first member of this institution, which is teaching holistic education to thousands of students across disciplines. And every day, this institute is growing strength to strength. It has students across the country from all the states, and there are few international students as well. We will grow from here. This is just the beginning. We have 3,000 students now. We will have 15,000 students soon. And now we have 9 faculty with 93 programs in undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral program, as well as certificate program. But we intend to make it even bigger and bigger with every passing day. So I'm thankful and I'm grateful that my life has been used. There are many who were not used. So I'm happy that I'm been used.
That's such a humble statement, Vijayalakshmi, that you consider that your life is being used in a nice way. Having done so much and having achieved so much in your life, how would you define success for yourself?
Success is a smile in the face. When you can smile in the face, you can take a joke to your stride. You can joke on yourself. You can be happy with small things of life, which we call uparati. And we can live our dreams, what we want, mostly which we can benefit others. Then that is real success. There are our students, the generation thinks that success is something, achieving something. And after achieving, you ask these people, are you happy? They will say, no, I will achieve something else now. Then I will be happy. Or, success. They want to catch hold of the success, but it goes away and away because your desire keeps on changing with achieving one success to another. And if you find somebody successful, that means he has taken a lot from the society. If you find this film star is successful because thousands and crores of people know him, or this industrialist is successful because he has accumulated a lot of wealth, or we find these as success. Of course, these are success. I don't deny the fact that they are successful. But if somebody asks you as a person, are you successful? And what would you like to be yourself? You would definitely like that I will have a good night's sleep. If I'm successful, I should at least have these things. I have a smile. I should have a joke at myself. I should have a company where I can take happiness, and I should be useful to others. I think the biggest thing about a successful people should be, would be, and could be that you must be useful to at least 5, 10, 20 people in your life. So that is real success. Success is not taking the fame or wealth from the society. Of course, you need to eat, you need to have bank balance for your health, education, everything. That I do not deny the fact. But you should also be happy. You should also be contented. So the right thing can be, if you are contented, if you have santosh or contentment in life, then you are real successful.
Beautiful words there. In the end, it all boils down to very simple things in life: to have a smile on the face and to be able to sleep well at night. What do you think are the, with so many years of experience, decades of experience, being starting from being the first member of this university to becoming the vice chancellor of a university, what are some of the qualities that are required for a woman to reach the position you have reached?
I am not the vice chancellor. I am the director of HRDC, Human Resource Development Center. Yes, I have achieved. I am very happy that with God's grace, I am here because I got the opportunity. I have some good karma. I'm born in a good family. I got good education, good culture, good sanskara, so that I can reach here, and I have a master in my life. So nothing more to ask for. So I am very happy about these facts.
Great. So what would you suggest as the qualities that one should have for someone to reach your position? Let's say a young girl aspiring to reach the position that you have. Maybe you could name 3, 4, 5 qualities.
Yes, passion, dispassion, and compassion. These are very important things. You should have passion to do something. And if you have passion, then it can only be achieved through commitment. So I don't sleep till I finish my day's work. This is my commitment to myself. And nobody watches you after a point. Nobody going to see what you have done. You can still be 10 to 5 and do nothing in the office. And then nobody could officially or technically know what you are doing. You can be like that, but that would not be an inspiring life. That would not be a life to emulate, or for yourself also, for others also. So you should have a passion, and the passion can be achieved or can be fueled through commitment and dispassion. If you are not dispassionate, you cannot even sleep. So you should have dispassion. So you meditate and then have dispassion. And when you work in a team or when you work in this world, you should have a compassion as well. So these three things are very important. And I also believe that honesty is the best policy. What I always tell to the student that you must have a sattvic dhriti. You should be truthful and you should have good intention. If you are truthful to yourself, to this world, to your friends, then you become the truth. Maharishi Patanjali has told, Satyam Pratisthaya Kriya Falashre. So when you are established in truth, whatever you touch brings result. Whatever you want to achieve, you can achieve. But you have to be truthful. And like you became the embodiment of truth. It is not a difficult thing. You just have to be aware about the fact. I have seen many people who talk lies when they are not needed even. So that makes them a shallow personality. Because even if nobody knows that one is lying, you know that you are lying. That made you something not as a stronger personality, or that made that is there in your consciousness that you didn't do something right. So that would somehow let you not grow or not grow to your fullest potential or not attract virtues, because this world is nothing but a plain display of energy. So you are an energy and matter. Physics says this. Now spirituality also says this. You are an energy and matter. You attract energies. And all the gods and goddesses were energy. And when we invoke, we do a homa or we do a chanting, that brings us energy. That's why I do these things. We go to temple because we became more energetic. We do a homa, vichagya. So we became more energy. We get energy. So nothing. If somebody is very, very good at energy, welcoming, smiling, you feel like talking to those persons more than somebody who is sad, complaining, negative. You don't feel like meeting these people or making them their friends. So it is nothing but a plain display of energy. So the energy you emit, you also gets it back. Again, the law of physics, whatever you give comes back to you, reflection. And also Newton's third law. So whatever you give, you get back. So being honest, live life simply. And all the big things, you spoke about President of India. So there are 2-3 things which are very simple, which could be practiced by anybody, which seems to be very simple, but sometimes difficult to practice, is resilience, being honest, being truthful. Her personality shows this. An enduring smile, irrespective of anything, which we call Sthita Pragya also. Stoic personality. And these are the things which you needed. And when you meditate, you can imbibe those traits easily. Rather than telling me that I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. It doesn't help. When you come to the real situation, it doesn't help. But if you are meditator, if you are in knowledge, you read text, if you've cultured your brain to an extent that when you need this knowledge comes to your rescue. So then it needs practice. So life, nothing comes easily in life. So working hard, practicing. To have an equanimous state of mind also needs practice. So, do meditate and you can achieve anything in life.
So far, we have talked about all the good things or the best things in your life. I'm sure you might have also faced some difficult situations. What have been some of your tricks, or how did you manage to come out of it unscathed?
Yes, I have faced a lot of challenges while doing the enactment of Srishi University, the land acquisition, and I also do different projects. I have faced a lot of challenges, but I have become victorious from all the challenges by adhering to these principles only, being truthful, being honest, and meditating every day. And fortunately for me, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar ji is there, so I can always talk to him. I can always seek his blessings, meet him, and tell him that Gurudev, I faced this, and so how should I do it? So that blessing is also there. He also advises. But most important thing which has benefited me is meditation and prayers. As I told, efforts and prayers. So some efforts yields result immediately. Some efforts take some time. Everything to happen, there are times have been set. Your purusharth, your efforts, your prayers, your intentions, make it quicker or make it achievable. But there is time for everything. That also I believe.
Wonderful. I think it's a blessing in itself to have Gurudev as your spiritual master and guide, and also be available whenever you wish to. So that's indeed a very great blessing. It has been an amazing conversation with you, but like all good things do have to come to an end, and our conversation also needs to come to an end. So I would express my heartful gratitude to you for taking this time out and sharing such amazing wisdom. You know, there's so much that one can learn from your words that's shared over just the half an hour here. But I think I definitely recommend each one of you to read the book written by her. I would just read out the name of the book she has written. It is President Draupadi Murmu, A Reflection of Changing Bharat. And that's by Dr. Vijayalakshmi Mohanty. Thank you so much, Vijayalakshmi, for being with us today.
Thank you, Malati ji, for having me. It is such a nice thing that you are spreading good word in your own way. This is also a service you are doing, spreading positivity, spreading good word. And when you talk about somebody who has received something in life, others in similar situation also would find their ways, and they would like to achieve also. They would like to benefit the society. So I would be happy that if my story also benefit people.
That is the primary idea behind this podcast, that people are able to take one or two feathers out of any of these conversations. Maybe they are at a beginning phase, or in the middle of their lives, or in the middle of their careers, not knowing how to proceed, or are faced with a challenge. Then I'm sure such conversations would give them the much needed impetus to grow and find their potential. Thank you once again, Vijayalakshmi, for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening in. I hope you liked this conversation and found it inspiring. If you think this could help transform minds, please feel free to share this podcast widely. You can listen to the Impressive Empress podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Samsung Podcasts, Amazon Music, JioSaavn, Deezer, and many more. Got a question that you want me to ask our next guest? Write to me at empress@bhogya.online. That's empress@bhogya.online. Do show your love for the Impressive Empress podcast with your likes, follows, and subscribes. Bye until the next time, and take care.